As you know, I record these sessions and I only put my solution up after your lecturer shows their solution. Now, this one is interesting due to many reasons. We have the tute sheet here. You are supposed to replicate this window and its layout and all the things pretty much on it. And it's got some hidden details that you probably won't pick up just by looking at this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create something that is fairly similar to the prescribed solution that your lecturer wants you to develop, because there are so many different ways to go about creating this. But on the left-hand side, I have a simple visualization of how everything is organized. So I am going to have a class called AppFrame, which is the big outside window. It's going to be a JFrame. Now, this is very common to see. It's very common to see a JFrame as the big container for all of your elements. So that's the app frame, and then I'm going to have 3 sections. So the top part is going to be the toolbar, or I'm going to call it the circle toolbar, which is going to be an extension of the J toolbar. And the middle part is going to be a J panel, just like the bottom part, which is also a J panel. The middle part is going to have circles in it, and those circles, I'm going to create another J label, or create a J label class or an extension of the J label class called circle view to represent each circle. So the bottom status bar panel is going to have a few more labels, but that's not the most important thing in the overall shape of it. We will add those things later on. So anyway, these are the main classes that I'm going to create. And the way you get this shape is from a layout. Now, if you're not familiar with the things I'm talking about, please refer to the lectures. The lecture did talk about layouts and pretty much the ingredients that you need to make this. But look, I have to say that this is not a simple task to actually look at one of those things and then to come up with an exact match. It kind of reminds me of those YouTube challenges where somebody plays a bass line and then another person's supposed to replicate it. Okay, anyways, so here we are. Now I have created an additional class called Image Icon Factory. Now again, you're supposed to have an image icon factory in the prescribed solution for this class. And this is going to help me do quite a lot of the basic things related to loading up image icons. So because the whole task today is about adding components to frames and panels, I developed this. Now this one is going to be a tiny bit different to what you're going to see when the sample solution is released. My version it does not have any static elements in it. Also, my one doesn't have any hard-coded file names. What it does is, so here's my constructor. So my constructor takes a path as its parameter. It's going to then get a list of the files in that path, and I'm going to have an array of file references, of file type references. So that is then going to be used to create new image icons. So image icons are necessary to represent these things. Now we are going to have another class to create the circles, but the basic mechanism of actually loading the image in a way that it can be seen is by saying new image icon and then you had to give which image you are trying to load. So this whole thing really translates into just a file name. So it might look like, wow, there's a lot going on there, but it's just a file name. All I have done is, here's my array, and when a number is specified through this, it maps it to one of the elements in the array. Not exactly a hash function, I wouldn't go as far as calling it that. All it does is, if this incoming number is outside the bounds, it just wraps it around. So as long as it's positive, we are fine. Now that's actually going to be helpful in one of the things we are supposed to do. But and then it says toString, so it's actually getting the file name of the file object. That's really all that's going on. Nothing special. This is just a file name. The way I get the list of files into the array is from this mechanism. It's actually not a lot of work. Yeah, you just specify a file path, and then you can say .list files. As long as it's a file object, you can get it from there. So another reason why I have that wrapping around business is because I want to be able to just keep on adding elements to this this thing, and then I don't want to, because I'm going to have a limited number of images, I don't want to go over the bounds. So it's just for convenience. As for the actual images, here's my project folder. So I have extracted all of the images into a folder or a directory called images, and they're all just sitting there. So if I want to add more things, technically I can copy those images into this folder and everything will be fine. So let's try to see the app frame, which is this thing. Now that's what I'm going to develop now. So the app frame is a JFrame. So we need to say app frame extends JFrame. And one of the things you need to do then is, well, import swing JFrame. You can say swing.star if you really want. Right, so in my main, I don't want to do much. I want to do this like any other object-oriented application. So I'm going to have app frame AF new app frame and something like that. So then I can create public app frame and the constructor. So in the constructor, I will do quite a lot of my work. So the actual call to the superclass can be done. Now this determines what actually gets written up here as the window title. So if we say AWT/swing tutelab exercises in here, exercises, and we should be able to see something. But the problem is, this is not enough to actually get the window to show up. So you can see there's nothing showing. The program stopped running. So I need to actually say set visible true. What I'm really saying is this dot set visible true. Now we don't really say this dot when even I'm not that bad when you're referring to methods. So, but really we want to make this app frame visible. And now you can see something. So if you make it bigger, you can actually see what's up here as well. Now here's another problem. So if I just close this, it'll go away, no problem. But have a look at this stop button. Now, as you know, this thing should stop. Well, it should not be read when the program finishes. So right now the program is running, that's why it's showing this. So let me close this, and yeah, it doesn't go away. So that's staying there. So that's a very annoying thing. We don't want our program to not have a graphical user interface and still stay in the background running. That's terrible. So that's why we say set default. Now, all of these things, if you can't figure out, you can't remember when you're typing it up, at least you can say this dot set default, and then you can see what's available. Of course, I was going to say set default close operation, and then exit on close. There it is. So that's what I wanted. You don't need the this dot. It just helps you with the completion a lot easier. So now I don't want to do just that. Now this doesn't also close. So this is not the same as a system.exit. This just sets what happens when you close the window. So let's try doing that thing we tried to do earlier. Let's close that and let's see whether the red dot goes away or the red stop button goes away. Yep, worked. So, well, there's a big delay on the screen. It's weird. In the projector screen. Okay, so what else do we need to do? Okay, so as I said, I need to have a JToolbar class here, a JPanel in the middle, and another JPanel in the bottom. So I want to add those. So to be able to add, now I have created the empty shells of these classes, and I will implement them. So the circle toolbar is the thing that stays right up top over here, this one over here. So that is a JFrame, JPanel. Sorry, what am I saying? It's a JToolbar. Like I said over here, it's a JToolbar. So I want to say extends JToolbar, and I have to import. There's my import statement, and now I can actually add this to my app frame, which is around here. You can do it before you set it to visible. So I can say add new circle toolbar like that, and then right. So this is still not going to show anything meaningful. You can kind of see there's something going on there, and that's going to be like that for a while until we actually add things into the toolbar and the middle panel and so on. So let me just work with this one for now. So in my circle toolbar, I have extended as a JToolbar. What I want to then do is have a bunch of buttons. So I need to have a bunch of buttons there. So I will say private abstract button, buttons, and public circle toolbar, the constructor. Then we'll say buttons, new abstract. No, actually we want toggle buttons. J toggle button type. No, hang on. Let me create the array first. And so the next question is, okay, how many buttons am I going to have? That depends on the number of images I have over here. So my class that I created earlier, the image icon factory, does that for me. So I can say get num images. So for that, I need to have an object of that class. So image icon factory, IIF Now we can improve this. This dot IIF equals new image icon factory. Have to import the package for that. For abstract button, I have to import that from Swing. And new image icon factory takes a file path to where the images are. So I'm just going to give the relative path saying images, because that's the name of my folder here, images. So that's because this name is here, right? So that's that name. Right, and let's say new file, and we should be good. So the file has to be imported again from IO, and so now I can say this dot IIF dot get num images, and now I have the button array. I need to go through the buttons using, say, a loop. This dot buttons dot length I plus equals to 1. You can feel free to use I plus plus. This dot buttons I equals new J toggle button. So we are supposed to use J toggle buttons. And then I will say this dot image icon factory dot get image icon and then I. So this is really what I wanted to do. Now, because there is a match between the array size here and how big I can go and how far this loop goes, there is really no conflict here. So we can actually do it without the modulo part for now, and it'll work. So let's try to get this thing to work first. Get the import statements in there. So once I do that, I need to add to myself the current button. This dot buttons I that. So let's try to see what my JFrame looks like, and you get something there now. All right, so that's like right smack in the middle. Not how we should have it, but you develop everything incrementally. So if I remove this part where I had the modulo, I said this is just a file name, and it'll still work. It's no problem. And if I, let's say, move one of my images out, or let's say two of my images out, and if I run it, it's going to show only whatever that's there. Okay, so so my circle toolbar is pretty much done, and then comes the panel. Now, because so that is the middle grid here. Because I want to make this organized, I want to do a few things. First of all, I don't want to resize the thing every time, because that's annoying. So I can say set bounds and then give it a size. 640/480, a very old school size. Yeah, so then we got the default close operation. So now it'll be of a certain size when it starts up. I don't need to resize anything. So that's a good thing. Another thing I need to do is set the layout. So this is what really keeps things organized, and I need to do that, or otherwise things are not going to look good. So I want this to be added, the circle toolbar to be added to the top. So I'm going to use a new border layout. and import that. And now when I add it, it'll be added. Now I forgot to mention where in the border layout I'm adding this. So I have to say border layout. I have to use one of the fields to say I want it in the north part, and there you go. So that's what actually keeps it organized, the layout. So let's do the middle part, which is the circle panel. And where's my image? Yeah, so the circle panel is a J panel. So I need to say extends J panel, and write code for this thing. Okay, so I want to have a width for the grid. That's the number of circles across. Then I want to have a height, and I also want to have a num circles, because it's not just the number of unique images, right? It's a different number, arbitrary. Yeah, so public circle panel. You can see how I'm not using the main method, of course. So what I want to do now is have a loop while I less than, and then go through num circles. So I'm going to initially hard code these things, or in fact I might just get them as parameters. You know how to do this. So width int height int num circles. So width is width, height is height, num circles is, guess what, num circles. And I will say while I is less than this dot num circles, I want to just go through and add a bunch of J labels. So I will say add new, and if I just say J label, I can get it to work, but it's not actually going to show anything. So let's try doing that. Oops. So I need to add, so you can't really see it, but that's why we need to add it. So add new circle panel, and the width is, what is the width? 6, height is 4, and we have 21 pieces. 6, 4, 21. And there you go. So I want these things to be in a grid. Of course, I will put images in there, but let's try to get the layout for this panel added also. So we are going to say set layout, and we want to have a grid. So we will have a grid layout, and we'll say what the width is and what the height is, and import the grid layout, and that's a lot better. So this thing needs more refinement. Even the J toolbar is not completely done, but you want to get something together, right? Okay, so instead of saying J label, I want to use circle view, because that's what I was planning on doing. circle view is a special type of JLabel, which is going to have the image icons. So where's my circle panel? Yeah, so now I'm going to say circle view instead, and not doing that. I want to instead say I, as in which number it is. So I want to have a public circle view int I saying what image icon this thing should be. So I can say set icon, and I could even get the image icons in here. Yeah, I might as well do that. So private image icon factory IIF this dot image icon factory. Wait, have to import. Doesn't want to import. We need this. Okay, so image icon factory, basically the same thing we said here. Now we can actually pass the image icon factory from the JFrame class, the app frame. Then it's the same image icon factory, right? Instead of creating a new one every time. So image icon factory, and I can say circle view set icon, and then over here I might get, so what I get from the image icon factory when I say get image icon is an image icon. So I can say that here, and that. Just get the imports done, and over here I will say this dot IIF dot get image icon I. So this is the place where I need the modulo, otherwise it's going to go outside the bounds of the array, because I'm going to have more circles than I have. What I mean is I'm going to have more things here than I actually have images for. I need that wrapping around to take place. So that's why I'm going to say modulo this dot file list dot length. So let's see what we get. All right, that's something. And you can see it's got it the other way around. We need it to be 6 across and 4 tall. So four, 6, and not enough. We should name it correctly. So the height first. And doesn't help much either. I shouldn't have flipped the values around. 6 and 4. Let's close that and see what we get. Okay, so that's a lot better, a lot closer to that. Still not quite there yet. So before I fix everything, I want to add the bottom part also. So that would be my status bar panel, which I said is a J panel. So what I'm going to do there is I'm going to say extends J panel, import status bar panel, and then I'm going to have a bunch of labels. So the labels that I might have, depends on however many labels the application should have. I'm going to create an array. Now the sample solution you will see will have a much simpler hard-coded approach, but you can get an arbitrary number of these little things without much trouble. Okay, so first of all, I need a bunch of labels. So J label, an array, status labels, get my imports done, then get my constructor done, and this will take num labels. So I will say this dot status labels equals new J label array num labels, and I'll have a little loop. This dot status labels dot length, or I can even say num labels here, no issues. It's probably safer, more future proof this way. And for this, I need to say this dot status labels I is new J label. Now you saw how J labels are added earlier. So we can say status and say I or I plus 1, so that the statuses are added starting from 1. And then this we need to add to my panel. Okay, so let's see what we actually get with this. Remember, now for every panel, we set a layout, except for the toolbar, that's not a panel. So the circle view, sorry, the circle panel got a grid layout. So we can use a grid layout for this one also, otherwise it's going to look bad. Well, once you add it. Add new status bar panel and 3 things. Let's run it. Yeah, so it's looking messed up. Have to say where these things go. So border, layout. We can we might just be able to get around by saying south for this without actually specifying anything here. Let's just see. Kind of works, yeah, but it's better to say that, better to explicitly say that you want this in the center, the circle panel. So nothing's different, but we're getting there. Okay, so add these things, and I want to create a grid layout for this. So I will say set layout, new grid layout, and then it's going to be 1 tall and 3 across. So the 3 comes from that, or I could simply say that comes from dot length. Import the grid layout package, and there we go. So this is now nicely spaced out. Right, now we can actually go about putting further refinements. What refinements do we need? First of all, my panel is a bit weird. Um, it doesn't have anything selected by default. So I can fix that by saying, where's my toolbar? This toolbar's here. So I can say buttons, this dot buttons 0. The first one is going to be always selected. So if I run it, now it's selected by default. However, I can continue to select multiple things. It's no good. I need them to behave like radio buttons. Only some of them should be selected. So for that, I need a private button group, which I need to create down here. New button group. Import what's needed. And so while we are adding, we should also add to the group. So this dot group dot add the current button. So by having it in a group, what we're really saying is that they are all related together. So if you run it, now you can see the radio behavior takes place. So if I just have like the first 3 in the group, it's only going to do the radio behavior for the first 3. And I would be able to select one of these things along with the other ones. So that's what the group does. Here's a hidden detail that you probably didn't notice. There is a different look to these buttons, a slightly elevated look to what I have on the screen. I don't know if you can see it, but my buttons look a lot flatter. So if you want to get the exact look, you can say this dot buttons I dot set border, and then there's a thing called a border factory, and then you say create bevel, create raised beveled border. That's a mouthful. So too many brackets there. So that is going to add that little touch, which gives it that, well, beveled border look. I don't know if you noticed that. Okay, so what else? In my circle panel, let's run it again and compare with the reference output. In my circle panel, you can see, well, aside from the colors being not quite right, which is, yeah, don't worry about that part. The circles are touching the edge. We don't want that. So we want things to be centered, but it's not something to do with the grid layout. It's actually to do with the circle view and where things are in here. So if you say set this dot set horizontal, there it is, alignment, and then j label dot center, that will center it horizontally. So now it's not touching the edge anymore. Not sure if you saw that. So we also need to do the same thing for the vertical alignment. So that's a lot similar to this. What can you say about the bottom panel now? Now, I think this is meant to be developed over a few weeks, so we are not going to have any actual interactive functionality, so we are just going to keep it very basic. But the status bar needs to have a border as well. So I'm going to say this is going to have a black border. Border factory, create line border, and I'm going to say what color I want them in. I can say I want them in black, like that. Import what's needed, and then right after I create my label, I can get this to say set border, and then the black border. So if I run it, I get the border now, which is a lot similar to what you're supposed to create. Can you tell another difference between what I have and what's shown here for the status things? Well, there one starts with lowercase. I'm not talking about that. What else? Sorry? Alignment's different, right? So here it's left aligned, that's fine, but the center one is center aligned, and the rightmost one is aligned to the right. So that's what we need to do next. Now, with my J label, when I create it, I can specify the alignment. So I can say J label dot center. So that'll apply that to everything, center everything. But I want this one to be left aligned. So the first one to be left aligned, the last one to be right aligned. What do you think I can do? So many things I can do here. I suppose the simplest thing is if I is 0, do one thing, which is left. If I is the last one, which is this dot status labels dot length -1, then we right align it. At other times, we center align. So if I get 5 things here, the logic will still hold. Now you didn't need to do it for an arbitrary number of labels for your solution, but I'm just showing you something fun and interesting, I think. So all of these things you can put into variables, saying the message and all that, and you can improve your code a lot more by doing the basics. Is there anything else? Is there anything else that I may have forgotten? No, I think this is pretty much it in the app frame. Yeah, no, that's all that is. So what you can do if you want to play around with it more is you can assume that all of the images are of the same size. Otherwise, it's just going to look bad. But you can set the bounds based on how big the grid should be, because there is a relationship between these 6 and how big the frame is, right? So that's something you can do. You can also center the frame on the screen. Right now it starts at 100, 100. So that's what determines where the thing is loaded. So 100 is arbitrary. Now you're not going to find a screen smaller than this in this day and age, but it would be nice to center it or try to put it like if you actually center it, if you get the width of the screen and divide it by 2, it's going to place the window somewhere like this, which is not going to look right. So you actually need to get it up here. So you can see how you can do that. And yeah, so the 640 and the 480 could be determined by the files that are actually loaded. So you can see the files are 64 by 64. So you can get this image icon factory to give that information to you. So right now, yeah, again, another improvement that you can do is instead of creating a new image icon factory object in the circle toolbar as well as in the circle panel, you can have it created in the app frame, because after all, it's the same set of files that you're looking at for the whole application. And then you can pass it in as a parameter to circle toolbar and circle panel. And then they can pull the icons from there. So that's something you can do to improve. So that way you don't need to mention the folder path in 2 different places. It can be done extremely easily. So I can do that in a matter of seconds, but I won't leave something for you to play with also with this version. Anything else? Yeah, so you don't need to change the status and all that in this iteration, so you can just keep it the way it is now. And let me know if you have any questions.